everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this video we'll be continuing our Hong Kong series and giving an overview of everything we learned as first time visitors to the city with a young family. We were a little bit apprehensive travelling with kids and how we'd manage with the time difference, culture, food and language etc. But we had an amazing time and found it to be a really easy and family friendly city to visit. So hopefully this vlog will give you lots of practical tips that will help you with your trip. So first off, time of year and weather. We visited in October 2024, with this being billed as one of the best times to visit, with it being generally warm and dry. Hong Kong does have a typhoon season, which we were at the very tail end of. With the kids' half-term break from school, we decided October would fit pretty well. We found it was pretty hot while we were there, the high 20s or low 30s. It did rain a little bit here and there, but nothing major, so it was generally really comfortable and a good time to visit. There was a typhoon warning while we were there, and we made sure to download the app My Observatory and sign up for alerts before we went. We found this was really helpful with weather forecasts and information on the typhoon. We also found there were different alert levels, and the hotel we were staying at, the Shangri-La Kowloon, put a really useful note under our door to warn us of the potential for bad weather, but fortunately it never materialised. Looking at payment methods, as you'd expect, most places took credit cards. The only real exception we found were taxis, where the drivers generally wanted cash. We did find that a lot of places advertised taking American Express, but then it never worked, so make sure you have a Visa or a MasterCard with you as well. A lot of places also take the Octopus card, so if you've got money loaded on here you can use this, but you need cash to preload the card. Octopus cards are similar to Oyster cards in London, in that it's a payment card for local public transport which you use to tap in and out, but it can also be used at a lot of shops around the city. There's a number of different ways you can buy an Octopus card, and there's loads of information on their website. The easiest way is to download the app and use your phone, but as we're a family of 4 and we don't all have phones, we weren't sure how this would work. We decided to buy individual cards for all of us, which cost £65 for the 4 of us, but it came preloaded with a chunk of money, so the actual cards themselves didn't cost that much, around £20 for all of them. Family tickets weren't available for purchase at the Tourist Information Centre at Kowloon, but they sent us to the Octopus booth on Pier 6 on Hong Kong Island to get these. I believe you can buy them at the airport on arrival as well, which probably would have been easier for us on reflection. Either way, once we had them, they worked really well, other than having to keep an eye on the remaining balance and to load money on in cash. You can see what the balance is on each card every time you tap out of the MTR system, so it's worth making sure you have a healthy amount of actual cash with you. We probably spent around £250 in cash in total during the week. Moving on to the public transport itself. The main system is called the MTR, which is an under and overground train system and is far and away the best public transport system we've ever used. Again, we downloaded the app, which was useful for planning journeys and was really easy to use. We found the system covered the city really well and was really affordable. The trains ran regularly, they were very clean and well kept, and we always felt safe wherever we went. You can't eat or drink on trains, and there's pretty big fines for doing this, but it's probably one of the reasons it's so well kept. The stations themselves can be pretty big and spread out under the city, with numerous numbered entries and exits. With the size of the stations, it means that the exit you take can make a huge difference. We got ourselves a map of the city from the Tourist Information Centre, which actually had the exits numbered on the map, which was so helpful and saved us loads of time and got us to where we wanted to go every time. As well as the MTR, there's the overground tram system on Hong Kong Island, referred to as ding dings. These are old double-decker trams that run up and down the island and are a fun way to get around. We used these a little to get around the island, and once we'd worked out the system and route, they were very easy to use. Just jump on and tap your Octopus card when you get off. We did take a good look at the route beforehand online. It was tricky to work out exactly where the stops were, so do a little research in advance if you want particular stops or parts of the city. And then finally, there's the Star Ferry, one of the iconic things to do in Hong Kong. These run back and forth across the bay and only take a few minutes. They're incredibly cheap and you just buy your tickets at the booth in the ferry terminal. It was really easy, almost no wait, very cheap, and a really fun way to get across the city, if a little bit choppy on the water. I've already mentioned signs. We found everything was both in English and Chinese, so we never had any issues reading anything or finding our way around. Basically, everyone could speak some English, to varying degrees. Taxi drivers, for example, tended not to speak a great deal, enough to get by, whereas people working in, say, hotels and restaurants were a little bit more fluent. All in all, we never had any issues communicating in English. I've mentioned taxis a few times as well. We did use them here and there and were able to flag them down when needed. They were pretty good value, so were a handy option. Generally, we found the drivers didn't speak that much English and also wanted paying in cash, but given they're pretty cheap, this wasn't an issue. They're not afraid to cram luggage in, even if the boot doesn't close, so be prepared for that as well. Moving on to food, this was one of the main things we were apprehensive about, given we were travelling with our kids who were picky eaters at the best of times. We found it generally worked out really well. Most of the time we could find Western food if we wanted it, although Disneyland was actually a little bit harder for this. In the city we ate at a cheesecake factory and a Bubba Gump restaurant, for example, and then there were various other options in the city. However, we did try more of the local food sometimes and the kids were happy with plainer chicken and rice-based dishes. We didn't try anything too out there. We're not foodies, so just ate where and when was easiest, rather than searching out anything in particular. For example, we didn't try dim sum, which is recommended as something for visitors to try, but we decided it just wouldn't work well for us as a family. Greg and I like to try bits here and there where we can. For example, bubble tea, which Greg loved and was sold at loads of places around the city, and steamed egg custard buns, which I gave a go, although they weren't for me. We all loved tangaluhu, which was fruit covered in hard sugar, and had this treat a few times. Generally, we found Western food to be more expensive, as you might expect, but the local food was more reasonably priced. Overall though, we didn't find it to be a particularly expensive city. In terms of options for vegetarians, these weren't wonderful, but maybe I was just unlucky. We also found it difficult for allergies. Greg is gluten-free, and the menus weren't generally marked, so this was a bit harder work with a bit of a language barrier, and sometimes we just had to wing it and make an educated guess. This was just about okay for us, but someone with, say, a serious nut allergy may have struggled a lot more. In terms of supermarkets, there were loads of 7-Elevens spotted throughout the city, but also there were some larger supermarkets dotted around the city as well, which were fun for picking up little bits to try here and there. The one time we wanted to pick up food specifically for a picnic, we did notice the price of Western food was incredibly expensive, but that's probably to be expected. I've mentioned apps a few times. We downloaded a couple before we went that we found useful. The best two were the MTR and Observatory apps that I've already mentioned. We also downloaded the Hong Kong SOS app for emergencies, but thankfully never had to use it. We also downloaded the Symphony of Lights app. This lets you listen to music as you watch the light show in the city. We planned to use it from our hotel room as we had a harbour view, but we never got round to it. We downloaded a Toilet Buddy app to help with toilets when we were out and about, but never needed to use this as all the tourist attractions, malls and restaurants had toilets. We did read that not all of them have paper, so we ended up carrying a toilet roll around in our backpack all week, but again, we never needed it. The Klook app was great for booking some of the activities I've talked about in our previous vlogs. The Cathay Pacific app was great for checking in and storing our boarding passes, and then we also downloaded the K11 Mall app to get some free Wi-Fi and to find our way around a little bit better. Rattling through the last few bits, in terms of ID, we were told to keep ID on us at all times. We ended up taking our passports with us wherever we went in secure travel wallets. I don't know if this was necessary or not, but it's something to check out. Looking at safety, we generally felt very safe everywhere we went. Because of our jet lag, we were out and about pretty late most evenings, and even walking about on a Saturday night in the city didn't feel unsafe. We didn't notice many people out drinking, and it was a very nice and friendly atmosphere. We did find that you were watched pretty carefully in shops, but didn't notice any shoplifting or pickpocketing or anything like that. But of course, we were careful as we usually are when travelling. One thing to note is that Eva, as a young blonde girl, did get a lot of attention, with people wanting to have their photo taken with her. But this was all really good-natured and friendly, so wasn't an issue for us. Looking at phones, we checked beforehand and our phones work just fine out here. You can buy a local SIM card to help bring costs down, but with us just being here for a week, we just stuck with our usual phone plans, which cost us around £6 a day just to use our normal data and things. Moving on to electricity. This was all on the English system, so for us our English plugs worked just fine without any adapters. In terms of opening times, we were surprised to find things were only generally open from around 10 AM to 10 PM. You might not think this would be a problem, but for the first few days when we were really jet lagged and awake late at night, it's something we had to keep in mind. Talking of jet lag, this was something we really weren't sure what to expect. There's an 8-hour time difference, so similar to say West Coast USA from the UK. But we were travelling east, so we expected we'd sleep in and then stay up late, which is exactly how it worked out. We flew at around 11 AM from the UK, landing early in the morning in Hong Kong the next day. This was probably the hardest part, keeping awake long enough to check in and then have a nap. Then we were just up very late and had a lie in late the next few days, gradually adjusting to a more normal time. This was fine, we just had to stagger our days, but we made sure not to book anything early in the morning at the start of the trip. And it's one of the reasons we put our Disney stay towards the end of the week. Coming back, we actually adjusted pretty quickly. We find travelling west to be easier. You can get up earlier and go to bed earlier, which fits better with going back to work and school, particularly if you can sleep on the plane on the way back. So adjusting back home was relatively easy. Looking at entry requirements. For UK citizens on a short holiday, it was really easy. We didn't need visas or any special arrangements. Obviously check at the time you travel to check the requirements applicable to you, but for us it was very hassle-free and easy. We did notice them doing temperature spot checks at arrivals, which we hadn't been expecting, but we weren't stopped and whizzed through. And finally, in terms of health, we always check the Fit for Travel website to see what vaccinations are recommended. This is not health advice at all, and you should check for yourselves and for your own trip. For us though, with the type of trip we had planned, we just needed to be up to date on our usual UK jabs and tetanus injection, so nothing particularly onerous at least. There's more information on the website, and we always find it really helpful to read this before we travel anywhere. So that was a bit of a brain dump of everything we learned from our first visit and how we found it travelling as a family. We had a wonderful time in Hong Kong and would recommend it to everyone. Hopefully you've found this useful for helping plan your trip. If there's anything you want to ask about our trip, then just let us know in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to our channel to catch the rest of our Hong Kong series, which continues next week with a look at our day in Macau. Likewise, if you like this video, please give it a like as it really makes a big difference to our channel. Thank you all so much for watching.